The mining colony of Vexera Prime clung to the edge of a jagged canyon, its towers of metal and glass trembling under constant wind. Dust swirled across the narrow walkways, coating the citizens in gray grit. Most people kept their heads down and their voices low. The corporate drones that patrolled the colony never missed a mistake, and survival here demanded constant caution. Life was hard. Trust was rare. Hope was almost extinct. Lyra Callan moved quickly through the scrapyard, her boots clanging against the rusted metal. She had the look of someone who had learned to live in silence. A mechanic by trade, she could repair machines the colony had long given up on. Broken drones, failing power nodes, and collapsed hover carts, Lyra could fix them all with whatever scraps she could find. Yet even her skills couldn't shield her from the boredom and isolation of life here. She preferred the company of her tools to people. That evening, she had been scavenging a pile of old cargo pods near the outer edge of the canyon. Most of the pods were crushed or empty. The wind carried a strange creak as she pried one open, dust spilling over her gloves. A soft noise made her freeze. It was barely audible, almost swallowed by the hum of machinery and the wind. At first she thought it was just metal shifting. Then it came again, a faint, trembling whisper. "Please, help me." Lyra's heart skipped. She knelt slowly, hands hovering over the pod's edge. She hadn't expected anyone here. The outer zone was supposed to be abandoned, dangerous, and empty. And yet the voice was real, desperate. She leaned closer, her breath catching as she saw movement inside the pod. A tiny creature stirred. Its scales shimmered faintly in the dim light, like fragments of broken glass. Its wings were too small to fly, and it trembled with exhaustion. Its large, amber eyes fixed on Lyra, intelligent and pleading. She had seen no creature like this before. Legends of dragons told in old Earth stories had long been dismissed as myth. But this was alive. Lyra's first thought was fear. Corporate security would never allow such a creature to exist. If anyone discovered it, they would take it away or worse. She felt a flicker of doubt. Maybe she should leave it and walk away. Most people would. Most people here survived by following rules and avoiding risk. But the look in the hatchling's eyes was different. It was not just fear. It was trust. And that trust lit something in Lyra she hadn't felt in years. A sense of responsibility. She could not leave it there. "Hey, it's okay," she whispered, her voice shaking. "I'll help you." The hatchling tilted its head as if it understood her words. It let out a small, shaky chirp. Lyra's heart pounded. Every step she took toward it was measured, careful. She scanned the area. The canyon was empty, the wind carrying nothing but distant echoes. Still, she felt eyes on her. Drones could be anywhere. Corporate eyes were everywhere. She grabbed her toolkit and wrapped the hatchling in a scrap blanket she had found among the pods. Its body was warm, fragile, trembling against her chest. Lyra could feel her own pulse in her hands. If she got caught, there was no excuse. No one would believe her story. They would call her insane. And yet, even in that fear, she felt courage rising. She was a human in a world that punished mistakes, and she was about to make the most dangerous choice of her life. Moving quickly, she carried the hatchling back through the maze of metal towers and broken walkways, her eyes constantly scanning for movement. Every shadow could be a drone. Every creak could be a signal of pursuit. Her mind raced, thinking of a place to hide it. Her workshop, deep in the lower levels of the colony, was small, cluttered, and far from patrolled areas. It was the only place that could offer some protection. When she reached the door, she paused, pressing the hatchling close. It let out a soft whimper, small wings brushing against her fingers. Lyra whispered encouragement, her fear mingling with awe. This tiny creature, abandoned and alone, had somehow survived the harshest world she had ever known. And now it depended on her. As she closed the door to her workshop, the wind outside howled through the colony towers. The soft humming of machinery mixed with the distant whir of patrol drones. Lyra set the hatchling down on a workbench and knelt beside it, brushing dust from its scales. Its eyes reflected light like molten gold, watching her with what seemed like intelligence far beyond its size. Lyra's mind raced. She had repaired machines before, but nothing like this. She had no instructions, no guide, no idea what the creature needed. Yet, for the first time in years, she felt something she had forgotten: purpose. This was no machine. This was life. A life that might be the key to something bigger, something she could not yet understand. Then the hatchling moved closer to her hand, its small claws pressing gently against her glove. Its whisper returned, barely audible, "They left me, only you can save me." Lyra froze. The words echoed in her mind. Save it? From what? And who had left it? She didn't know, but she understood one thing clearly: she could not turn away. Not now. Not ever. Outside, a shadow passed over the workshop window. The hum of drones grew louder. Lyra's courage hardened. Whatever the world threw at her, whatever impossible odds lay ahead, she would protect this hatchling. Even if it meant defying everyone. Even if it meant risking everything. Her hand trembled as she reached for tools and scraps, beginning her work. She had no idea what she was about to face, but one thing was certain: the story of the abandoned hatchling and the human mechanic was only just beginning. Lyra spent the first night watching the hatchling sleep atop her workbench, its small body curled beneath a blanket of torn cloth and wires. Its breathing was shallow, almost rhythmic, and for a moment she allowed herself to hope. Maybe this creature was alone, but it had survived. Maybe she could help it thrive. By dawn, she had scavenged broken energy cells, wiring, and scraps of old heating modules. She created a makeshift cradle for the hatchling, rigged to provide warmth and monitor its weak pulse. The little dragon stirred as she adjusted the blanket, letting out a tiny, hesitant chirp. Its amber eyes tracked her movements like it was studying her, weighing her worth. Days passed and Lyra discovered strange things. The hatchling didn't eat like ordinary animals. It seemed drawn to electrical currents. Sparks from her repaired drones or exposed conduits fascinated it. When it touched wires with tiny claws, they hummed with renewed energy as though alive. The discovery made Lyra's mind race. This wasn't just an animal, it was something else entirely. Something capable of interfacing with machines. She realized the potential, but also the danger. If Vextech ever learned about it, the colony would descend on her workshop within hours. Dragons were strictly prohibited. Legends claimed they were extinct, but that only meant anyone who saw one would immediately report it to authorities. Lyra couldn't risk it. Not yet. She tried to reach out to fellow mechanics, but every conversation ended the same way. Dragons don't exist, they said, shaking their heads. Stop imagining things. Focus on repairs or you'll get yourself fired, or worse. Lyra nodded politely, but inside, frustration boiled. Nobody wanted to believe. Nobody wanted to risk. But she had to act. The hatchling's whispers haunted her. They left me, only you can save me. One evening, while working on a malfunctioning hover rig, the hatchling moved across the floor. As it passed under a damaged energy conduit, sparks jumped to its claws. The nearby hover rig whirred to life, motors spinning smoothly after weeks of neglect. Lyra's jaw dropped. It had fixed it, without her touching a single wire. Her pulse raced. Could it understand machinery? Could it manipulate technology? She tested her theory cautiously. She laid a small, broken drone in front of it. The hatchling stepped forward, eyes focused, and the drone powered on. Its lights blinked, circuits stabilizing as if guided by invisible hands. A mix of awe and fear gripped Lyra. Awe because she had discovered something extraordinary. Fear because the colony would kill it if they discovered the truth. She realized she could no longer simply hide. The hatchling needed more than scraps and secrecy. She needed to understand its abilities. And she needed to prepare for what might come next, something she couldn't yet see. Her nights grew tense. Patrol drones scanned the scrapyard routinely, forcing her to move in silence and shadows. Every time a drone's light passed, she froze, holding her breath, hoping it wouldn't spot the hatchling under a pile of metal. The little dragon sensed her fear, curling closer, soft whispers drifting into her ears as if reassuring her. Then one night, a subtle shift occurred. The hatchling pressed its tiny claws to her workbench, humming with energy. Lyra watched as sparks leapt from the wires, forming a faint, glowing pattern in the air, like a circuit traced in light. Her breath caught. The hatchling wasn't just interacting with machinery, it was learning, adapting, understanding. A sudden crash outside jolted her. She grabbed the hatchling and ducked beneath the workbench. The sound of metal screeching and robotic servos filled the scrapyard. A Vextech drone had spotted movement, drawn by the small bursts of electrical energy the hatchling had emitted. Panic surged, but Lyra clenched her jaw. She couldn't panic. She had to think. Humans survived here not by luck, but by ingenuity. Using her knowledge of the scrapyard, she activated a series of leftover welding torches, directing smoke and sparks to obscure the workshop entrance. The drone hovered, scanning, but its sensors were confused by the interference. Lyra's heart pounded in her chest. One wrong move and the hatchling would be discovered, or worse, destroyed. The dragon chirped softly, almost as if sensing her fear. It pressed against her shoulder, small wings fluttering in rhythm with her pulse. Lyra realized something profound. This creature trusted her completely. And in return she had to trust herself. Trust her courage. Trust her mind. Hours later, when the drone finally moved on, Lyra exhaled slowly, relief flooding through her. But she knew this was only the beginning. The hatchling's abilities were growing and Vextekka's eyes were everywhere. She needed a plan, a way to use the creature's powers to survive, and maybe even protect others. Lyra gazed down at the hatchling, its amber eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. "I don't know what you are," she whispered, "but I'll figure it out. And I'll keep you safe. No matter what." The hatchling's whisper was barely audible but clear in the silence. "Then prepare, they are coming." A chill ran through Lyra. She didn't know who they were or what was coming. But she knew one thing: hiding wasn't an option anymore. Whatever danger awaited, she and this tiny abandoned creature would face it together. And for the first time in her life, Lyra felt the stirrings of true purpose. The scrapyard was quiet again, but the air was thick with anticipation. Sparks danced faintly across the workbench, hinting at the hatchling's growing power. Lyra knew she had to act fast and she had to act smart. The colony would not wait and neither would fate. And somewhere in the darkness beyond the scrapyard, eyes watched. Lyra didn't sleep that night. The hatchling lay quietly on the workbench, but its tiny body pulsed with energy, as if sensing danger that she could not yet see. Every creak of the scrapyard, every gust of wind across the canyon, made her flinch. She had learned quickly that in a place like Vexera Prime, hesitation could mean death. She needed a plan. She spent hours scanning the scraps of broken machinery that littered her workshop. Bits of hover drones, power cells, and old repair bots were strewn across the floor. Her mind raced. If the hatchling could influence machines, maybe she could combine its abilities with her own mechanical knowledge. Maybe, just maybe, they could create something powerful enough to survive the inevitable confrontation with Vextek. By morning she had a rough idea. She gathered old repair drones, wiring, and portable energy cells. She rigged each drone with makeshift sensors to respond to the hatchling's energy signals. It was crude, dangerous, and completely untested, but Lyra had never been afraid of risk. This was more than survival, it was courage. It was ingenuity. It was human determination in its purest form. The hatchling watched her work with wide, intelligent eyes, tilting its head as sparks flew from her improvised circuits. When Lyra tested the first drone, a small light blinked on, motors whirring to life, following the hatchling's gestures as though guided by an invisible hand. Her pulse quickened. It worked. Somehow, against all odds, it worked. But the moment of triumph was short-lived. A low hum filled the scrapyard, a Vextek patrol drone scanning the area. Its sensors would easily detect the energy bursts from her workshop. Lyra froze. Every decision she made from this point forward could mean life or death for both her and the hatchling. She crouched, whispering to the tiny dragon. "We have to hide. Now." The hatchling chirped softly, wings fluttering, and energy sparked faintly from its scales. Lyra guided it under a stack of crates while she activated her improvised defense. Small drones, already pre-programmed to mimic energy activity, buzzed to life, creating holographic sparks and erratic electrical signals around the workshop entrance. The patrol drone sensors were confused, scanning the flashes and noises without locating the real source. Lyra's heart pounded in her chest, adrenaline sharpening every thought. She had always trusted her mind more than anyone else's, and now she was testing it under impossible pressure. One misstep and the colony would take everything from her, or worse. The patrol drone lingered for long minutes, lights sweeping, rotors buzzing. Lyra barely breathed. She could feel the hatchling trembling beside her, tiny claws clutching her glove. And then finally the drone moved on, its sensors misled by her makeshift decoys. Relief flooded her, but she knew this was just the beginning. Over the next several days, Lyra honed the system. The hatchling learned quickly, directing drones to perform tasks she hadn't even imagined. They could stabilize broken power conduits, repair collapsed sections of the scrapyard, and even deflect small energy pulses from Vextek equipment. Lyra marveled at its intelligence. It wasn't just a creature of legend, it was a partner, a force that, combined with human ingenuity, could accomplish what no machine or human alone could. Word spread quietly among the few workers who had noticed sparks or unusual activity. Rumors of the ghost dragon circulated, though no one dared investigate too closely. Lyra didn't care. She was no longer just a mechanic. She was a protector, a strategist, a human willing to challenge impossible odds to save something extraordinary. Then came the real test. A tunnel collapse had trapped a small team of miners deep in the canyon. Vextek, ever cautious, refused to authorize a rescue. The drones they had sent in were too slow, too rigid. Lives hung in the balance, and the humans responsible for safety hesitated. Lyra's chest tightened. She didn't need permission. She needed action. Gathering the hatchling, she activated the drones, coordinating them with careful precision. Sparks arced from the hatchling's tiny claws, energy flowing into the machines, powering lifts and stabilizing weak beams. Lyra's fingers flew over controls she had barely finished improvising, adjusting, rerouting, thinking 3 steps ahead. Every decision mattered. Every second counted. The first trapped miner emerged from the rubble, eyes wide, coughing in the dust. Lyra's heart leaped. "Keep going," she shouted, guiding the drones. The hatchling chirped encouragement, a tiny pulse of light shooting from its scales. One by one the miners were freed. Each rescue built tension, adrenaline, and awe in equal measure. From the edge of the canyon, a patrol drone hovered, its sensors finally detecting unusual energy. Lyra froze for a heartbeat, then remembered the decoys. She activated them, sending a burst of sparks in the opposite direction. The patrol drone hesitated, confused, giving her enough time to finish the rescue. When the final miner emerged, Lyra collapsed briefly against the workbench, sweat and dust coating her face. The hatchling nuzzled her shoulder, its small body vibrating softly with energy. She had done it. Against impossible odds, she had saved lives that no one else would have risked. But as she gazed at the little dragon, amber eyes gleaming, a new understanding settled in her mind. This was not over. Vextech would eventually discover the truth. The hatchling's abilities were growing, and the colony itself would demand answers. The real challenge, the one that required courage, ingenuity, and sheer human determination, was just beginning. For the first time, Lyra realized the truth of the hatchling's whisper. "They left me, only you can save me." She had saved lives, yes, but protecting this creature, and using its extraordinary abilities, would push her to the edge of what it meant to be human. The scrapyard was quiet again, but the faint hum of drones, powered by a tiny dragon and guided by human genius, reminded her. Ingenuity, courage, and determination could bend even impossible odds. And she would need all 3 to face what was coming next. The day the tunnel collapsed, the colony seemed to hold its breath. Dust choked the canyon, and the distant hum of corporate drones filled the air like an ominous drumbeat. Lyra stood at the edge of the wreckage, her heart hammering. The trapped miners' voices echoed faintly from deep below, fear and pain woven into every shout. Every second counted, and every second could mean death. Lyra glanced at the hatchling, small but resolute atop her shoulder. Its eyes glowed faintly, wings flicking nervously. She had never seen courage like this in any human, let alone a creature no one believed existed. And yet, she felt it radiating from the hatchling, feeding into her own resolve. Together they were more than the sum of their parts. "Ready?" she whispered. The hatchling chirped softly, energy sparking along its scales in response. Lyra activated her drones. They buzzed to life, hovering with precision, ready to follow the hatchling's lead. Her fingers flew over the improvised control panel she had cobbled together, rerouting power, stabilizing weak energy nodes, and mapping structural weaknesses with rapid calculations. The first obstacle was a section of collapsed tunnel, jagged beams and concrete pinning debris over the miner's location. Lyra's pulse quickened. Any miscalculation could trap them deeper or bring the entire ceiling down. She gestured to the hatchling and sparks arced from its claws, flowing into the nearest drone. The drone shuddered, then lifted heavy debris with mechanical precision, guided by the hatchling's energy pulses. Lyra adjusted the force, calculating the angles in real time. A miner's voice called out, "We're running out of air." The urgency made Lyra's stomach knot, but fear was useless. Humans survived through ingenuity, and ingenuity demanded action. She directed the drones to brace the tunnel beams while the hatchling's energy stabilized the structure. Sparks flew, dust filled the air, and the drones worked tirelessly under her guidance. Step by step the blocked passage gave way. Then came the patrol drones. Vextech had arrived, drawn by the unusual energy surges. They hovered at the edge of the site, scanning, rotors slicing through the dusty light. Lyra froze for a heartbeat, realizing they could compromise the entire operation. If they detected the hatchling, both she and it would be captured, or worse. She made a decision. There was no time to hide. Every instinct screamed risk, but hesitation was worse. Lyra adjusted her controls, sending decoy energy signatures in the opposite direction while directing the hatchling and drones toward the trapped miners. The patrol drones hesitated, confused by the false signals. It was enough. Not ideal but enough. Minutes dragged like hours. The hatchling flared its tiny wings, sending arcs of energy through the rubble. Sparks danced across broken metal and concrete, illuminating the terrified faces of the trapped miners. Lyra's mind raced, calculating each move, each burst of energy. She felt alive in a way she had never known, human ingenuity and courage fused with something extraordinary. The drones lifted the heaviest debris, their motors whining under strain. Lyra guided them carefully, anticipating structural weaknesses before they could fail. The hatchling chirped encouragement, tiny claws tracing lines of energy that seemed to pulse in perfect synchronization with her commands. One by one, miners climbed free from the collapsed tunnel, coughing, shaking, eyes wide in awe. Then disaster. A massive section of ceiling cracked and shifted dangerously, threatening to crush the final group. Lyra's hands flew over the controls. "Hold together," she shouted, voice raw. Sparks flew from the hatchling, flowing into drones that braced the crumbling metal. The last miner scrambled as debris shifted around them. Every second stretched into an eternity, and the weight of the colony's disbelief pressed down on her. But Lyra refused to fail. Humans survived through courage, intelligence, and unwavering resolve. She directed the drones with split-second precision, calculating angles and weight distribution, predicting collapses before they happened. The hatchling added its own energy, pulsing in rhythm with the drones, stabilizing every weak point. Finally, the last miner emerged, stumbling but alive. Relief hit Lyra like a physical force, but she didn't relax. The patrol drones hovered closer, scanning. She took a deep breath and activated her final trick. A network of decoy drones created a massive, shimmering distraction. Electrical sparks arced across the scrapyard, lights flickering as if the workshop itself was alive. The patrol drones hesitated, their sensors overwhelmed. Lyra seized the moment to slip the hatchling out of danger, guiding it beneath crates and hidden metal piles. When the patrol drones finally moved on, she exhaled, collapsing against the workbench. Dust coated her skin, sweat dripped from her forehead, and adrenaline still thudded in her veins. The hatchling chirped softly, curling against her shoulder, wings flicking lightly in exhaustion and relief. They had done it. Together, human courage and ingenuity had bent the impossible. The miners looked at her with wide, incredulous eyes. How did you do that?" one asked. Lyra just shook her head, glancing at the tiny creature. She didn't need to explain. The truth was clear. Humans could accomplish what others deemed impossible when they refused to give up. And yet, even in victory, Lyra knew this was only the beginning. Vextech would not forget. The colony would demand answers. The hatchling's powers were growing, unpredictable and potentially dangerous. The whispers from the tiny dragon echoed in her mind, "They are coming." She didn't know who or what they were, but she understood one thing clearly. Survival would demand even greater courage, intelligence, and human determination. For the first time, Lyra realized the magnitude of what she had done. Humans weren't just surviving on Vexera Prime. They could shine, even in the darkest, harshest world. They could defy odds, bend reality, and protect life where others would abandon it. And she, a single mechanic who had once kept to herself, had become the spark that proved it. The canyon was silent now, except for the hum of drones and the soft whisper of the hatchling. Lyra glanced at it, amber eyes glowing in the dim light. "We did it," she whispered. But both knew this was only the start. Outside, the wind howled through the canyon, carrying dust and distant sounds. Somewhere beyond the scrapyard, the first shadows of a new threat moved. Lyra tightened her grip on the hatchling and straightened. No matter what came next, humans would meet it head-on. And this time she would not be alone. The canyon was quiet now, but Lyra knew the peace was fragile. Dust hung thick in the air, and the hum of distant machinery reminded her that the colony never truly rested. The miners she had saved had returned to their work, still wide-eyed, murmuring about the ghostly lights, the sparks that seemed alive, and the courage of the mechanic who had saved them. Few dared approach her, and even fewer asked questions. They were afraid of Vextech, afraid of the unknown. Lyra didn't mind. Recognition had never been her goal. She glanced down at the hatchling, its amber eyes glowing faintly, wings twitching as it explored the corner of her workshop. The tiny creature had grown stronger, its abilities more precise, more controlled. She could feel the intelligence within it, the awareness that seemed far beyond a normal animal. Somehow, it trusted her completely. Somehow, together they had changed the rules of survival on Vexera Prime. Over the next days, Lyra worked tirelessly. She repaired broken drones, rebuilt energy conduits, and improved her workshop's defenses. The hatchling moved alongside her, synchronizing with machinery, pulsing energy into circuits, helping her test devices she had never dreamed could function so efficiently. Their bond had become more than caretaker and creature, it was partnership. Together, human ingenuity and dragon power reshaped the failing colony infrastructure. Vextech eventually arrived, of course. Drones hovered at the edge of the scrapyard, sensors scanning for unusual energy signatures. Lyra didn't panic. She had anticipated this. Using her knowledge of the canyon and her fleet of improvised decoy drones, she masked the hatchling's presence completely. The patrol drones scanned, buzzed, and then left, unable to locate any sign of the creature. Lyra exhaled slowly. The game of cat and mouse had only just begun, but she had won this round. Word of the rescue operation spread quietly. The miners who had been trapped told hushed stories about sparks that lifted beams, about a small creature that seemed to guide machines, and about Lyra's fearlessness in the face of impossible odds. People whispered, eyes widening with awe. A few even dared to hope. Maybe humans weren't just survivors in this harsh world. Maybe they were capable of more. For Lyra, the true triumph was not recognition. It was the realization that humans could shine, could make impossible choices, and could save lives when others turned away. The hatchling, once abandoned and ignored, had been given a chance, because a human had refused to accept impossible as the answer. That, more than any machine, any patrol drone, any policy, was the real victory. She worked late into nights, combining her mechanical expertise with the hatchling's unique abilities. Together they repaired failing life support systems, reinforced unstable walkways, and powered old equipment that the colony had long written off. Drones moved with efficiency that surpassed human operators, guided not by programs, but by energy flows emanating from the tiny dragon. Lyra realized this was more than innovation, it was evolution. Humanity, aided by courage and ingenuity, could thrive where systems had failed. But there was more. The hatchling's whispers became clearer, more deliberate. They are coming, we must be ready. Lyra didn't know who they were, perhaps Vextech, perhaps something even greater, but she understood one thing: preparation was now essential. The survival of not just herself, but the hatchling and potentially the colony, depended on her intelligence, foresight, and unwavering courage. A week later, she called a meeting with the miners she had rescued. She taught them what she had learned: how to reinforce structures, how to read the signals the hatchling gave, how to adapt machinery to survive impossible situations. Slowly they began to see the truth. The colony was not powerless. Humans, working together, could bend systems, control technology, and even survive where machines and rules failed. Lyra felt a swell of pride, tempered by caution. The hatchling chirped from its perch, wings flicking in excitement, sensing the renewed determination in the humans around it. This was more than rescue. This was inspiration. It was hope. Humans had shown bravery in the face of overwhelming odds. They had refused to let fear dictate their actions. They had proven that life, ingenuity, and courage could reshape the world. And then came the moment she had been waiting for. She released the hatchling into a small, reinforced training area she had built on the edge of the canyon. It stretched its wings fully for the first time, scales glinting in the sun, energy pulsing through its small body. Lyra watched, heart pounding. She had nurtured it, protected it, and now it was ready. Not just to survive, but to help the humans around her. The miners watched in awe as the hatchling soared through improvised courses, guiding drones, pulsing energy to stabilize structures, and interacting with machines in ways that defied understanding. Lyra realized something profound. Humans were not alone in the universe's harshness. When courage, intelligence, and morality combined, humanity could partner with the extraordinary and thrive. By the end of the week, the colony began to rebuild with newfound purpose. Structures repaired faster, energy systems stabilized, and even Vextech's presence seemed less threatening as humans had adapted, innovated, and learned. Lyra walked through the scrapyard, hatchling at her side, knowing that what they had accomplished would ripple through Vexera Prime for years to come. She knelt beside the creature, brushing dust from its scales. "We did it," she whispered. "You survived, we survived, and we proved something no one believed. Humans can be unstoppable." The hatchling chirped softly, a sound full of intelligence and trust. Together they had changed the course of their world. And somewhere beyond the canyon, Lyra knew challenges would come. Other threats, other obstacles. But for the first time she felt certain, as long as humans refused to give up, refused to accept impossible, they could meet anything. Courage, intelligence, morality, and determination, these were humanity's true weapons. The The tiny dragon fluttered its wings, the sunlight catching its iridescent scales. Lyra smiled, heart swelling. They had survived. They had thrived. They had inspired. And Vexera Prime, once a place of despair, now held the seeds of a future humans would define for themselves. The whispers that had begun in fear now seemed full of promise. We will face them, together. Lyra stood tall, gripping the hatchling gently. Against impossible odds, humans had not only survived. They had triumphed.